Hello, and welcome to another episode of Joy and Gratitude. This is our opportunity to unravel ourselves and come into the light. So, Beth, my wonderful partner in crime, what are we going to talk about today?
Interestingly enough, I want to talk about greetings. And I say salutations sounds so formal. Greetings and salutations. But the other day I was walking, I was out for a walk, it was wonderful. And I think it was about four people in a row said good morning. And all of a sudden it hit me that most of the time that doesn't even register with me. And I started to think about that. I thought, this is so nice. Good morning. Like that's a greeting that's very typical. And like, are they really wishing me a good morning? Am I having a good morning? Like, what? These were strangers. I didn't know any of them. And I just thought, where do greetings come from and how interesting they are and how they're used in our society? And I thought we could talk about sort of greetings, but also even take it to some of the things that are happening around like signs and, we all know what this means. So universal greetings, universal signs, whether they be hand signs, etc. And do they how meaningful are they and can we make them more meaningful? Can we use them in a way that has impact or does it always have impact and how does it have impact or not have impact based on where you are, etc. Anyway, I just all of a sudden was really like perplexed by this that everybody said good morning very naturally as if it was just a part of the way in which you interact with a stranger on the side of the road. But I realized that's a learned behavior, and what do the words behind it really mean? Because honestly, that day I really kind of loved and enjoyed that people were wishing me a good morning. Like, may you I took it to expand that to be like, may you have a good morning.
Which
What do you
is,
think, Neo?
well, it goes back to the history of salutations, the acknowledgement of
Salutations.
another human being in your midst and letting them know that you welcome them in your space.
Hmm.
And, it's always interesting about that because I've actually sat down and thought about it many a times, just going through my day and depending on the part of the country or the world that I'm in, um, when do you say good morning or whatever is the appropriate salutation for that community? And when do you not? And it's really funny
Mm.
because good morning actually goes back all the way to the 1600s, and it was a longer statement. It was actually good morning, da, 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 may your day be blessed, and all that. It was like a really long statement. And then in the 1800s, it got chopped up to good morning. And in America, they decided to take it when they came to America and continue it. And it's
Mm.
exactly like what you said. It stuck. Everybody in America hears good morning. They know what you're saying. They know where you're coming from. And there are other means of the nod. Person walks and you give them the nod. That's another good morning. The peace sign, all different statements of I see you, I acknowledge you, and I wish you peace. There are times when those salutations mean so much.
Mm.
And, we take them in and we're like, yeah, that's really good. And you think about it's all relationships, right? Even with a stranger, it's that known relationship of we're in the same place, we're breathing the same air, and it's safe. That's what that good morning means in that situation. When you are amongst colleagues, friends, it's, hey, here we are reunited, and that's great. And always is the difficult question of, do you go past and go into how are you doing? And that's the interesting one. Do you do the formal good morning, which is the safe, I'm done, I don't have to really get into anything? Or do you take the brave act and say, "How are you doing?" And you could get the simple answer, the answer that we all give, "Great. How are you?"
Mm.
Or you could get somebody basically give you a landing of, this is going on, that's going on, and you may not be ready for it,
Mhm.
or you're there to support the person, or you're there to run for the hills because you did not really ask all that. And I was watching
That
this
it
meme. Yeah, right?
yes. It's that's what I think I was trying to say with the nuance of the good morning. It's almost like a it can be meaningful if it's said where they look right at you and there's some otherwise I think it's an accepted sort of but I love how you described it. I hadn't really thought about that Neo as like a acknowledgement that we're in shared space because that actually feels about what they were doing. They were just sort of and I think there was an acknowledgement for we were all outside early in the morning. So there's this little bit of like we're in the same community, we're in a community that likes to be outside at a certain time of day. And therefore, I'm going to acknowledge that. Good morning. You're here too. I'm here. We're up. And you nailed what I was trying to explain, which is what is this good morning? What does it mean? And that is what it means. But I agree with you. If you look at somebody straight in the eyes and you pause and you say it with the more gravitas, there's usually a follow on, like good morning. And then,
Mhm.
what does that mean? And you might not necessarily be ready for that. It's so interesting that you have the history to know that at one point it was longer. That makes more sense to me, that it wasn't a throwaway, right? That it
Yeah.
was like a different kind of greeting.
So the funny story, you know, I pride myself on one thing. I really should have been a librarian. Um, and I actually wanted to for a quite minute in my life. I love research, and I research things that make no sense to anyone. I have like just gobs of stupid information in my head that I shouldn't have. But this research, yeah, pray for me. So this research happened years ago when someone had told me good morning came from America, African slaves, and all, and I was like, no, 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 that can't be. And there was this, and even on social media, it was put out that it meant mourning, Mourn, mourn.
Oh,
And it was like, you're going to mourn somebody because something's going to happen to somebody. And that the slave masters would say that to the slaves to give them a warning that something was going to happen. That is actually not a true story.
wow.
It goes back
I've
to the
never heard
16.
that.
Yeah, it was all over social media for a while, and I had heard it years back when I took an African studies course, and even there they said that it wasn't a true story. So validated by someone who was a specialist in African studies, African American studies, and validated again by research that I did, about how good morning came up in the 1600s. So that's where I know the evolution of that. But one thing that's quite interesting about good morning is the power of acknowledgement and connection. And it doesn't matter who you are, there is a craving in the human environment, the human capsule, that we crave connection. Now, at different levels, at different times, but we crave connection. And that good morning can change a day.
Mm,
So it's quite interesting when you have societies that do not do salutations. There's if you go to the northern part of France and you're walking down the street, you would nod at the other person, and that is the acceptable salutation. If you're in central Paris and you nod or even make eye contact, that is viewed as foul. You're not supposed
Mm,
to. You're supposed to let people be, and they see it as an infringement of their privacy.
interesting.
It's a different way of
Just
looking at things.
cultural, it's just a cultural difference, a
It's
distinction.
right. It's a cultural norm. If I were to go to Italy, a head nod, a acknowledgement, whatever you want to say, it buonasera, but whatever it is, they expect an acknowledgement.
Mhm,
So every
mhm.
society has created their form of acknowledgement and their form of comfort in acknowledgement. In American society, we all, the big joke is, oh, in New York, nobody acknowledges you, nobody looks at you. Not true. I grew up in the area. That's not true. People do the head nod, people do say good morning, but it all depends on the situation. Are you in a situation that there are too many people on the street? Then you're not going to acknowledge anybody. You're just going because you better
Mhm.
go because the street's going to take you.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? There's so many people walking that everybody's going to push you forward. So it doesn't make sense to be going, good morning, good morning. You can't, it doesn't make sense,
No.
right? But if
Yes.
you're in a little neighborhood in New York, people do acknowledge each other. People
Mhm.
do say good morning. People do stroll. And there's so many neighborhoods in the New York area. So it's so funny how we also have taken the salutation and make assumptions of how we need to use them depending on where we go and how we need to behave. But at the end of the day, we need to connect.
It and you're really making me realize something with your like you said, we all have these like biases of, who's friendly, unfriendly, all of that. And I'm thinking there's some that are so clear, right? Italians was a great, yeah, they're like huggy. That's like a very much a cultural norm. And you mentioned there's also not just the words, but you mentioned the nod. So there's nods, there's an expectation of, you know, kissing, side kisses, right? I mean, all those things, which in exactly in Spain, very normal. I mean, I lived in Spain, obviously, and
Yeah.
exchanged student Miguel and his family. Like it's incredibly normal to just do the 1 2, like 2 kisses is that one. And I have a fun story where we have very, very dear, we almost call them family. Well, we do call them almost, we do call them family. They're a family, and the gentleman of the family, they have 4 daughters that are all my generation, but Isabel and Carl, who I love, um, he's Belgian, and it's 3, and it just took him so long because 3 is like it's just a it's like what? Like, 1, 2 from being an American where you're like there's not a lot of kissing going on. If you're
No,
meeting someone for the
that's
first time, you're
overkill.
not going in for 3, you know? And then when you get used to it in some of the European countries where it is 1, 2, right? We're sort of used to that like mwah, mwah. Well, the mwah, mwah, mwah took a lot. The 3 was like, what? And he would always, so cute. He would always say, no, no, no. In Belgium, it's 3. And just recently, I went to go visit him, and he's now well over 100. And I did 3. He was in like a wheelchair, and I came in and I did the 3, and he just went, 3. It was like, it was the sweetest thing because he knew that of course, I had figured it out after so many years that whenever I am in his presence, I must give him 3 kisses. And that was because of, like you said, that's for him. That was, he's been in America for a very long time, but it was an essence of his, who he was foundationally, where he came from. And so I think there's so much to say. One of the things I wanted to come back to, and you mentioned about people not acknowledging. And I think you're absolutely right. And I haven't thought about this for so long. So I want to say, I also want to pause us. We love the pause to say, this is so fun that we would just pick a topic. And for 14 minutes, we've been talking about good morning, which just hit me one morning where I said, wow, 3 people said the same thing. And that made me feel good. And what was their intention? And then all of a sudden, we're here now. And I say it to just get everybody to realize the beauty of noticing, just noticing things, and letting that, when that happens, don't ignore it. Don't just sort of go, I mean, I think this happened and I texted Neo and said, this is going to sound strange, but I'd like to explore how we greet each other and what that means. Now, I had no idea other than I wanted to go a little deeper because something was like really interesting to me about this, that I would learn from Neo the history. No idea she had that research in her back pocket. Like, what? But I think there's something beautiful that's bringing us back to connection and belonging. And you really said it. And I wasn't thinking that this was like a way in which I was part of a community to start my day. But I
Mhm.
also think the same way that that felt so good, that the good morning made me really feel seen. That's what you said, right? Seen, a part of a community, something so beautiful about how the rest of my day was going to go after that happened.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
the opposite can happen. So
Yes.
I also have been
Yes.
in plenty of situations where I'm out in the morning and there's only two of us. Like, I'm passing somebody and they don't even look up. They just like don't even acknowledge my presence. And I know that that feels yucky. And I sort of go, really? Like, there's two of us. But I've had to catch myself because I have to say, wait a minute, there's two to tango. You're feeling like they didn't acknowledge you. Well, what did you do? Just speak first. So now I have let go of being like, who, it's like, what are we playing chicken for, who's going to acknowledge the other person first? I just always, right? It's because then it might be like, am I not, no, I'm because their head is down, I'm not saying anything. And forget about it. I'm now going to be like somebody who just says, I acknowledge other humans. It's important to me. And I'm not going to do anything that gets in their space, but I'm just going to say, good morning. Or I'm going to smile, and say something that it just acknowledges that they're there. And if they're in a place where, because we don't know, we always say, we have no idea what's going on in somebody else's world, where they can't respond back or that doesn't feel good to them, I'm kind of okay with it now. But before, I used to get, when I wasn't saying anything and they weren't saying anything, that didn't feel good. And now I just have decided what feels better is to say something, to acknowledge them as another human in my space. And then next is like, and if they still don't say anything, to forgive them because they must have something that's spinning for them where, that acknowledgement isn't forthcoming in that moment. So all of this is because we decided to say, let's notice how we greet each other. Let's notice the acknowledgments that we give each other as humans. And one of the ones I did also want to talk about, we did the peace sign, which is so fun. And I feel like I still use that all the time. I don't know, with my kids, like it just comes up all the time, which is beautiful that it has such a recognition. But one of the things I was going to say is they also come and go, right?
Yes.
Like I think about
Yes.
different gestures. So now for people that can't see me, I'm holding up the hand heart gesture. And yeah, that we can create a heart with our hands. That's relatively new, I would say, right? I feel like now that's kind of, it's been trendy for a few years, but I don't remember who started
A
it.
big
There's
emoji
research for.
too. Big
Yeah,
emoji. Everybody uses it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone uses it. I'm like, there you go, research, everybody. We've just added to Neo's research. I am sure someone, whether it be a superstar, a celebrity, somebody did it, and then now everybody does it. Like youth does it, but now our generation does it. So it's caught on. So it's kind of fun to also know that these things can evolve and change. And I think maybe good morning, to be honest, if I reflect, what struck me about that was it wasn't hello, because hello feels like almost a giveaway, right? Hello, hello. It doesn't have the same connection for me. So I think part of what hit me was that multiple people said good morning in the same time frame and it just stuck in a different way. I personally received good morning very differently than a hello for whatever reason. And
Oh,
that's what made me think, where's that coming
we,
from? Like, what?
we talk
But it
about
hit
this
me
all
different.
the time. We talk about how words matter, right?
Yeah.
And how it's so important that when we address someone, we're doing it in an authentic manner. And when you say good morning, you're actually wishing somebody something positive, right? It's a positive statement. Hello is just the acknowledgement, but there's no intent or anything with it. But good morning is like, hey, and some people say, oh, have a blessed day or something like that. Again, oh my gosh, you're wishing me something positive. You know, uh, I'm going through a new identification of life in my life circle. And one thing that you said was, I intentionally am going to be the one saying good morning. And one of the things that I've done is I really make it a point to say good morning, as I'm going to many places that are with people that are going through great hardship, um, whether they are the caregiver or the person receiving the care. You can become invisible in those scenarios. And I know how much a good morning and an acknowledgement of me has been vital for my mental health, that I want to make sure that I do it to others. And I do, I've learned so much that it's not even that. I mean, I have a lot of tradesmen in and out of my house right now. And I literally have a refrigerator in our lanai that is full of water, and they know they can get water at any time. But if I notice they're not doing it, I'll go open the refrigerator and start handing out water, as they're fixing and changing things on our house. And it's just that acknowledgement. It's hot, it's Florida, they need to be replenished, right? They need to have hydration. They need to know that they're human. And I it feels good to connect with people, even though you're not having a conversation, you're not doing anything, but just knowing that you're letting them know, I appreciate you for showing up, and I want you to know that I see you. And I know how it is to feel invisible and literally not be seen. And I don't want to be part of that team ignoring people. I want to be part of the team cheering people on, not knowing their life, not knowing what they have, but I want to be part of that team. And um, sometimes we go through stumbles in lives to get us to the awareness that that's what we should be doing in an authentic measure to be a good human. And I want to be a good human.
Me too. I, I really do. And the word invisible. Um, one of my good friends used that with me once, but with the verb, the action to invisibilize, and
Mhm.
it stuck. It stuck. She sort of said, "Well, they're invisibilizing you," and I thought, "Oh my gosh!" It resonated so deeply because we say, "Do you feel seen or not seen?" But the fact that there's sort of a an ability for someone to actively make you feel invisible by not acknowledging you was not like a whole next level. And
Yep.
so noticing, and I say this because I would love our listeners to think about, because one of the ways you described it is that you said, I know what it feels like to feel invisible. If you know what it feels like, then it's pretty easy to say, I don't want to be on that team. I don't ever want somebody to feel that way in my presence. I want to do the opposite. I want to make them feel seen and held and part of a community. And that simply hand gestures, nods, kissing, greetings can be a way to do that. The simplest of ways can make somebody feel like you actually see them. And I I know people probably didn't get to see it, but I got a little teary when you talked about being seen. I had a recent example where when especially to your example of caregiving and, the caregivers and the receivers and all of the dynamics in between. I was in the hospital with my daughter Annie recently, and it was very traumatic and emergent and scary. And when we finally got to a place of, um, I guess, like security, safety, and security, I sort of fell into this chair, and one of the nurses said, "Can I get you anything? Do you want a cup of water?" And it was like I was like, yes. I just was like, "Oh my god, I would love a cup of water." Rightly so, all of the attention was on the patient, and I completely understood that is where it needed to be. But as
Mhm.
the mother of the patient, I had all my own things I was experiencing. I mean, I was terrified, I was helpless. I had all these things that I was trying to work through that I didn't even know at the time. I just was in it. But this, like, it was so small that this woman just looked at me and said, "Can I get you a cup of water?" And I just thought, like, oh, she sees that I'm the mother of this child who went through this thing, but that I'm also right here. And it was super hard for me too. And it was very small, but it felt so big. And I just felt so, I felt so seen.
Yeah.
And it really made a difference. And if she had any idea that that one gesture, offering, move had so much to do with letting me just kind of settle, and it had huge impact. I don't think she probably, I should have told her, but this is what we learn. I've just, like you said, have to just, when those things happen, be more aware in the moment so I can be more grateful. But it was really special. And it made a big difference to feel seen and to feel like somebody could um, just acknowledge me in their space in a way that felt like a gift.
I just want it's so think about that. Both of us talked about how it impacted us and how important it was for us. I'd like to remind those of you that maybe are leaders and how impactful it is for your team.
Mhm.
If you think about teams and you think about team engagement, those teams that have a leader that rounds authentically and actually walks around and acknowledges their people, says good morning, makes the eye contact, have teams that follow them, have teams that want to succeed with them. They have teams that know that they probably have someone that has an ear available for their needs. So please don't think that this is a trivial topic. This is about the human experience, the human advantage. The human advantage is connecting with each other and understanding how we empower each other by doing the simplest things. You don't have to be dramatic. We don't have to spend hours. We just have to say hello, good morning. Hello, how are you? Good morning. Have a great day. Acknowledge. Give that person that moment of you belong. You deserve to be acknowledged. I see you. It's the simplicity.
It's simplicity.
So at this point, I'm thinking of, and I did not really think of a song for the joy note side of it. Um, but it came to me as we were talking, and I thought of Adele and
Mm,
Hello from the Other Side,
mm.
and it's just such a beautiful song. It just really talks about that connection. So let's see what we get with the gratitude rocks.
I don't know. I'm really this one's calling to us today.
You're going deep, girl.
Going deep. Okay, it's a really cool blue green kind of ocean like color, and the word is balance. Balance. And all I can think about as you say that is, two sides, right? Being able to acknowledge each other is to acknowledge that there are two sides. I picture like a seesaw and coming to a balance, and maybe all it takes, maybe somebody's up high and somebody's feeling down low, and you have the ability. Each of us as humans has the ability to acknowledge someone, to see someone, and allow that to maybe lift them up and bring them into balance again. So it's simple. The human advantage, I want to say that word out loud again. It's definitely the title of this podcast. And Neo, you said it so beautifully. The human advantage, and how can we each play a role in knowing what that is and participating in a way that everybody feels seen, and doing quite the opposite of invisibilizing, but rather lifting people up, making them be seen.
Absolutely. It's special. It is what makes us true people. And I'm just so happy that we had this opportunity to talk about this topic. And I know that we will have more topics that, you know, maybe no one would think warrant a long conversation, but they really open us up to the possibilities of connecting better with each other. I thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And please join us for another episode of Joy and Gratitude in the future. Have a great day.